and welcome to another edition of Deploy on Friday. I'm your host, John Bristow. Joining me, as always, is Jim Pelletier. Jim, how are you?
Yeah, really good. Really good. Had a great week.
Awesome. Anything to share? Any news or
Uh,
insights that worth mentioning?
just getting good stuff done with the team. I know
You
like
engineers, man, you just sit in the dark and do your little things, I
well,
guess.
we've been talking to customers this week. We're talking to
Oh,
customers
good.
about there's a new EAP feature we've got out, which is the network. I can't remember what we called it, but it's like network retries basically. So
Yes,
unreliable networks. I
yes.
think we talked about it last week, so we're still talking to customers about that. Uh, and we're also talking to customers who are doing big deployments with Octopus and starting to tackle that a little bit. It's
Nice.
been really
I like
cool.
it.
I always enjoy talking to customers and finding out how things actually are on the ground outside of the dark cave. Yeah.
You guys are like mushrooms, you just
Yeah.
stay in the dark and we feed you, soil and stuff, and that's just the way it goes. For those folks who aren't aware of what Jim was talking about there, this is a feature we've recently added. Actually, two sets of features here: retries and timeouts. So, execution timeouts and execution retries are two facilities to try and improve the robustness of your deployments. So you'll find these in a step, and you'll find them in only specific steps. So you won't find them in every step, but you'll find them in most steps. There are certain steps like, send an email or manual intervention. It doesn't make sense to have like those things. Like, how do you set a timeout on a manual intervention? Jim, you got
Mm.
5 minutes left, 4 minutes left, 3 minutes left. Like, so what this allows you to do is basically specify how many times you want a step to re-execute before it's marked as failure. And the other one is setting the number of minutes that you would like to specify for a particular step to until it's deemed has failed. And this is really
Yeah.
useful if you're doing like FTP connections or flaky networks, things like that.
Yeah. Well, there's actually another one we've added as well, which is actually the network level. So in the machine policies for a tentacle, you can now specify another layer of retries at the network level that happens a bit faster than that. So this is like if
Nice.
the thing actually fails, like these step retries are really good for. I know not not pointing any fingers or anything, but Azure web apps, for example, just fail
Yes.
sometimes. Who knows why?
Yes.
They just do. So step retries are really good for dealing with that. What we're talking about is if you might be deploying we've got a lot of customers who run things like point of sale systems and stuff like that. And that might be on the other side of the internet, on the other side of some kind of unreliable network. And so there's
Yep.
some new retry settings in the machine policy to deal with that kind of failure.
I like it. That's
Yeah.
awesome. All right. So, anyways, this is a show where Jim and I talk about the latest news related to Octopus and the industry relative to CI/CD. So, yeah, if you're new here, welcome. Feel free to like and subscribe. This is our website. If you haven't checked it out, is at octopus.com. Should be your homepage. We've had a few articles go up on our blog recently. We talked a little bit about execution timeout. So, if you're at all curious about reading more about how this works, the feature that Jim and I just spoke about, Isaac's written a blog post here that talks about basically the ins, outs, and everything relative to execution timeouts. So that's definitely something you can check out there. We also have a couple of other updates to multi-tenant deployments, etc., which Andy's been writing feverishly about, which is awesome. Uh, we also have, some people might find this surprising, but dropping support for Windows Server 2003. So this is these sorts of systems are kind of like cockroach, what I like to call cockroach technologies. You can spray as much raid on them, but they'll never die. And I think I have a few systems in my closet over there that are probably like that. They're never going to go away. But I guess we're dropping support for Windows Server 2003, which I guess is, it's 20 years, right? So, it's probably time. And this will occur in 2024.1. So this is for specifically targets and workers. So it doesn't mean it's not the end. It's just see you later, sort of thing. But we have to do this for a number of reasons, and they relate to how we cut code and what we support, etc. So we are deprecating support for that, and just to be aware of that.
Yeah. Help
Are
us
you
get
are you
you and
sad? Are you upset about this, Jim?
look, I'm upset that it's going to cause some people some work to do it, but
Yes.
this is the kind of stuff that really helps us move faster and
Yes.
ship the stuff that people need to them faster tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Robert went into the details as to why. So you can check that out there. Anyways, so we've been pretty busy on a variety of fronts. So earlier today, in fact, it's literally the same day. Jeffrey Palermo joined me for a webinar on database deployments with Octopus Deploy. So Jeffrey and I talked a little bit about how you might go about shipping these things, meaning deployments to databases, how you might manage schema migrations, how you might use tools like Flyway, for example. And so if you want to check that out, you can find it available up on our YouTube channel, which is slash Octopus Deploy. And in addition to that, we've also published some other videos as well. One example is we did a webinar with Steve Fenton from Guestline, a customer of ours that is using Octopus Deploy in a big way. So Guestline is a hotel management system, and we did a case study with these guys. And so Matthew and I did a webinar talking about how Guestline utilizes tenants and utilize tenant deployments for their systems. And the language line here, or the tagline here, is how they save 2,000 plus hours per release. That was calculated based on the number of people that they would need in order to do deployments. So using tenants in Octopus saved them a lot of time. In fact, the actual number was 2,800. So a lot of man hours saved using Octopus, which is fantastic. Steve Fenton and Steve's a member of the team here at Octopus, and he and I had a conversation about one of his white papers that he wrote. This was entitled A Modern View of Multi-Tenancy. You can find it at this link here. We've created a shortened URL here. This will take you to the white paper itself. It's about 30 or so pages. And I invited Steve on to talk to me about basically the white paper. You know, what are some of the things that you need to think about relative to tenants? How do we define tenants? Where they apply? And so Steve was kind enough to jump on and talk to us a little bit about that. And so if you're at all interested, you can find that up on our YouTube channel as well, or you can find it on our LinkedIn profile as well. So if you subscribe to our LinkedIn, you'll find it there, or on YouTube, or wherever else social media channels we have. So yet another video that we have. Lots of video. We've been putting a lot of video out, which is fantastic. And then finally, I will be running, or not running, sorry, I'll be on a upcoming event, a live stream here for with HashiCorp. It's called the HashiStack live stream, and it's going to feature myself, Ryan, he's a maintainer of a thing called HashiCube, and then Armand, who's the co-founder and CTO of HashiCorp, is going to be on the community live stream. And so the three of us, along with Ned, who's the host, will be talking about all kinds of things. I would imagine we'll mention the Octopus Terraform provider. We'll talk about our integration with Terraform and Vault. We are a partner of HashiCorp, so yeah, lots of stuff to talk about there, including all the latest innovations, which we'll talk about in this episode of Deploy on Friday relative to HashiCorp, which is fantastic. All right, so that news out of the way, we can move on to more of the industry trend news. And this one caught my attention because I have had a lot of experience dealing with Dependabot. Everyone loves Dependabot, don't you, Jim? It's always
We do.
the yes. until it starts to get cranky, and or until you get on you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and you start getting upset yourself about how often it
Yeah.
tells you have to update your dependencies. So
Yeah,
Dependabot is
totally.
this app service that will tell you, hey, you've got a dependency that's out of date, and will provide for you an automated PR for you to update your dependencies. And it's multilingual, which means it will work across a variety of environments and project types, etc. So it supports .NET, supports Go, supports Rust, supports JavaScript, supports TypeScript, supports a whole variety of languages, and understands the project formats for those. So npm, package.json, solution files, Go projects, etc., and then give you updates. This is an article that was posted earlier today, a faster way to manage version updates with Dependabot. Now you can group multiple version updates in a single pull request, which is awesome.
Yay.
So yeah, so for those who don't know, who haven't used Dependabot, you typically get a ton of PRs, and you have to be like, yes, accept, and then wait for all your checks to run, etc. It takes a long time to manage, and it's noisy. And so now this article goes into how you can configure Dependabot. This is done through a YAML file called dependabot.yaml. and you can configure it now to do it as a group. So what you do is you specify basically a group with a name, and that name will be displayed in the PR, and it will also show up in your branch name. And then from there, we'll give you the group of updates. So here's an example of how you might want to configure this. So this is group by dependency type. So you can define the dependency type here, whether you're in production or development. You can also specify exclude patterns. So I don't care about certain libraries or dependencies, for example. Another example is patterns. So this is utilizing a combination of, I guess, for lack of a better term, regular expressions without the regular expressions. So asterisks, dots, etc. And you can specify certain parts and pieces of your package. There's also the update types. So you can specify major, minor, patch, release, etc. And so these and other things you can now add to your dependabot.yaml file. And so this will allow you to get this as group updates, which is fantastic. What do you think about this? This is nice, eh?
This is something we've been waiting for. We nearly moved away from Dependabot because of it. Yeah,
Okay.
this is amazing. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So there you go. Take the 2024 State of DevOps survey. This is from the folks over at CD Foundation. So this is a blog post that went up earlier today. We're excited to announce that we're partnering with Puppet. So they did this last year to bring you the 2024 State of DevOps survey. This is the State of DevOps report is basically garnered through the DORA, I guess, committee slash group, I guess. Folks at Google are utilizing this in a big way. And so this is a call to action to CD Foundation to fill out the survey. This is the one that's actually done via Puppet and the CD Foundation, which is a little bit different. But they both are similar types of questions like, hey, are you defining processes? Hey, are you utilizing tools? How many tools are you using in your CI/CD pipeline, et cetera, et cetera. So if you want to get involved, check it out over at the CD Foundation.
Is there a state of season? I seem to remember last year all the reports came out about the same time,
Yes.
like a festival of
Yes.
states. Yeah.
Yeah, there's also the state of Kubernetes security. I mean, like I've seen it all,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's a state for everything. The state of state deployed reports, I guess. I don't know. So TypeScript 5.2 is also out. This was announced by Daniel over on the Microsoft blog. 5.2 isn't a big surprise to anyone. I mean, this has been under preview. We've talked about it on previous shows of Deploy on Friday. So if you want to get the latest bits, npm install, etc., away you go. They have just kind of solidified on some of the things they've already announced. We've talked about them on this show repeatedly about what's coming. So it's now available, part of the stable release, I guess, or the stable channel, and lots and lots of features in there. I know that people are pretty excited about having, various features, and it really depends on, what is your bugaboo relative to TypeScript. Like, is there something in here that you've wanted for a while? Just looking at the quick list of features. So using declarations and explicit resource management. So similar to a using pattern, I would imagine, that you see in other languages. So for example, in C#, with a using statement, kind of like for a cleanup. So in the case of C#, it will call iDispose interface. So you can basically, if you're executing a try, catch, finally block, using a using pattern, it will allow you to do cleanup. So this is, I guess, yeah, here we go. So using file, and then if something bombs, you ought to return. You can actually now conduct some cleanup code for this. So yeah, so that's definitely something that you can do now, and should make locks and make cleanup, dangling whatever. I guess I would say pointers, but whatever. I guess there's no concept, but yeah, things like that. Decorator metadata, for example. So this is piggybacking off the ECMAScript feature. So the idea is that I can provide some metadata in the form of attributes, very Java-esque, if you will. So I can specify my setters if I want, and I can specify the serialization notion here. So I didn't think that they would use the @ symbol, but I guess they like the way that Java does it. So there you go. And that's part of the decorator metadata story relative to TypeScript. So now available in TypeScript 5.2. A few other ones, but they're mostly niceties. They're not major changes, but definitely stuff that you can take advantage of going forward.
I think the @ symbol was what they used in Angular as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's
That'd
correct.
be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, not confusing at all. Come on. Our friends over at JetBrains have recently announced TeamCity 2023.05.3. This is mostly just a bug fix update. So make sure you patch your instances running of TeamCity. Yeah, they've also got their Docker image published, which is the thing that I use quite a bit up on Docker Hub. And yeah, that's available now. So check that out. Speaking of other updates, .NET Framework has some cumulative updates as well. So these are the ones rolled up for August 2023. So we got various updates for things like WPF, the runtime itself, and ASP.NET, which is nice. I do like the approach that they're taking with .NET Framework, providing these patches. I think it's the right approach going forward and being public about it. Sometimes you see these things and they're available as KBs, like knowledge base articles, etc. At least that was the old days, and I never liked that. I'm like, wait a minute, there's a fix for this? Oh, okay. Where? Well, thanks. I really appreciate you not telling me. So
Yeah.
the fact that they're blogging about it is great, and I say more of this, please. So yeah, that is again something. If you care at all a little bit about what's happening on the framework side, and you have a bug, that's something to check out. Circle CI. This is a blog that I read from time to time. This is a CI server product, etc. We integrate it through a number of orbs. Orbs are like they're like extension modules for Circle CI, and they have a language trends 2023 top tools used by elite software delivery teams. This was published last week, and they talk a little bit about some of the trends we're seeing relative to language. I don't think there's any major surprises here. Yeah, that really did a good job there, John. See how much more zoomed in that is. So TypeScript was number one. Sorry, JavaScript was number one. Now it's TypeScript, followed closely by Python, then JavaScript. So JavaScript has lost its throne a little bit. It's gone down in the ranks. Um, staying steady as Go. Some other ones are Rust. So you saw Rust go from 25
Oh,
down
look
into
at that.
Nevermore land and up to 24, now jumping up to 20. So we're seeing some
That's a
radical
big jump.
improvements there. Yep. Jupyter Notebooks. I wouldn't classify this as a programming language because it's, largely just a product. And it's neither is HTML. HTML is not really a programming language in my book, but there you go. But the top 10 seem to be pretty stable. Swift itself, yep, still where it was. The one that's dropping a lot is HTML. I guess that one's interesting. I've been talking to folks about HTMX as well, which is seen as a replacement to React. So some interesting things afoot, and yeah, I think that's kind of
What's
like
what's the vibe on HTMX?
what's
After we talked about it last week,
uh,
it was the first I heard about it.
yeah, it's interesting. So I talked to a fellow Octopus person in the office last week about it, and
Mm.
yeah, he was pretty keen on it. And so yeah, it'll be interesting to see where things land relative to that. I think it's interesting days. React has gotten very complicated, and I think people want to go back to the promises of 2004, back in the day
Yeah.
when it was just the view of the V in MVC as opposed to everything else that it now encompasses. So yeah. Anyways, if you want to have an argument with your coworkers, this is always a good starting point. This is a nice match to throw on the fire there. So there you go. This one shocked me. So NVIDIA, the company that makes all the graphics cards, etc., they make a lot of AI chips. And the thing that's not shocking me is the fact that they're in this business. I knew about this before, but during their last call, their last quarterly results, they had put out a growth estimate around what their revenue would be for the quarter. I think they think they saw 11 billion in quarterly growth, and they crushed it. They didn't have 11 billion. They had 13.5 billion. Now the reason why 11 billion was massive was because prior to that, their largest quarter they had ever had was 8. So they've gone from their largest quarter ever to their second to now their largest quarter ever, and then they beat estimates. And Nvidia's stock has jumped 250% in the year alone. And this is driving a lot of the growth or this is floating, I guess, the growth that you're seeing in the S&P and Nasdaq right now. So, anyways, Nvidia is absolutely crushing it in terms of their revenue, and this is largely driven by the demand for AI and for NPUs that NVIDIA produce. So Yeah, I just thought this was interesting. It's sort of a sign of the times relative to what's happening, and it's a good signal as to where the trends are lying. So Nvidia is making a lot of money, and yeah, I think AI is helping driving. Obviously, it's driving that demand. So, were you aware of this? Where did you
I was aware it
realize
was
that Nvidia
happening.
was making so much money?
Yeah, I did,
Yes.
and I think it's super interesting because I mean, sometimes I don't know, when you're thinking about AI and Chat GPT and stuff, like it's amazing what those things do. Sometimes it feels a little hypey as well, but
Yes.
there is money being spent behind that hype. Like there is real investment happening, as you can clearly see here. So there's something to it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Interesting times. Anyways, the numbers don't interest me so much as just the fact that they're making that much money. That's
Yeah.
unbelievable. GitLab continues to ship and ship away. So 16.3 is now available. This shipped earlier this week. This adds a bunch of capabilities. I went through the list here. Nothing kind of stood out for me. They talk about 100 plus improvements, etc. Nothing that I saw there really wowed me. But you can go through the list yourself if you're at all interested. A lot of stuff that they're pushing out is around stuff that folks care about, the sort of metadata around projects, etc. So they're providing more analytics and telemetry around how your workloads are going.
Mm.
Being able to connect to a workspace via SSH, that's always a nice thing. Additional filtering of scan result policies. So this is checking to see whether or not you're in compliance. Security findings in VS Code. This is actually part of their GitLab workflow integration or extension for VS Code. I don't know if I can bring this up or not, but who knows if this will render. So there you go. You can see inside of GitLab workflow, it will trigger any number of issues that it deems are appropriate to notify you of. And so this is utilizing some of those static analysis tools that they have. The needs keyword for parallel jobs, that's just, execution of jobs. It's nothing major. More powerful SaaS runners on Linux, always a good thing. Integration with Azure Key Vault, so that's important as well. And then a boatload of other features as well. So I went through the list. I wasn't too impressed. It's just more and more improvement on what's there. So definitely a list worth checking out. And if you're utilizing GitLab, I think the most powerful statement is the iteration and the cycle and the velocity that the team has around this. So it was just the other day that 16 came out, then
Yeah.
16.1, 16.2, now 16.3. Other updates, GitLab 6.7, keeping you secure. So this one I highlighted the other day. This is now available for both VS proper and .NET 7 out of the box. You can also download it, obviously, for other platforms. And the key takeaway around this is around security. So they're talking about various things that are important relative to NuGet package distribution. So being able to view, for example, your source mapping status in the package details pane. So being able to see where those actually reside as part of your package deployment. When packages are not mapped, you can configure your config package mappings, and you can hit this via the link here with configure, which is fantastic. Easily create package source mappings for your config files. And then other features include a new vulnerability API as part of the protocol. So NuGet has an underpinning protocol for it. And so you can see which packages are now vulnerable. So you can see these ones here. Everything is vulnerable after before version 13.0.1. So a little bit of a flag there for you to see where you need to get updated. Empowering warning signs on Linux and Mac if signed package verification is untrusted. This is always a good thing. You want to make sure you're notified of the fact that you're downloading something that hasn't been validated. And so these and other sort of features are now available as part of NuGet, which is
Nice.
always a good thing. This is an article from our friends over at Humanitech, and they do a lot around platform engineering and internal developer platforms, or IDP. IDP is one of the most overloaded acronyms at the moment. So if you're talking about IDP relative to this, it stands for Internal Development Platform. Basically, the idea is that you're providing the means by which developer teams can build out software effectively and in a collaborative manner by providing a platform and there's tools that go along for the ride with this as well. And so this article, is it best to build or buy your internal developer platform, is something that's worth interesting. You talk about also about defining what it is. This is sort of, when you look at this, it's sort of, the collaboration, but also the tooling that goes into, bootstrapping your teams. So you can go to internaldeveloperplatform.org if you want to check out more about what this means. But if you think about it relative to Octopus, it's a combination of tools. Like for you, it would be something like Rider, it would be Git, it would be GitHub, the tooling maybe as a combination, maybe our Docker images for
Yep.
hosting, server, for example. You may utilize combination of observability tools as well. Maybe Kubernetes if you're working with cloud, for example. So and being able to basically integrate those changes going forward is going to be important. So that's part of this discussion. And so part of the argument here is it really depends on what your approach will be. And they surveyed a bunch of customers about what matters to them and how they should consider this. I think that when you look at this, you have to consider what's out there. So at the moment, one of my favorites right now is Backstage. I think Backstage is really taking on a lot of popularity because it has a great plugin model. I wouldn't say the integration there is perfect, but we also, the fact that you can actually integrate extensions like Octopus Deploy and see your deployments as part of a CI/CD tab. So Backstage itself, the last time I looked at the demo, it was broken. Let's see if we'll have any luck bringing it up this time. So if you go to demo.backstage.io, this is Backstage, and it's basically a portal where you can track a whole bunch of things like, shared components and libraries and APIs and docs and things like that. So you can take a look at, the APIs that are available. You can drill into an API set. You get a listing of, providers and relations and customers and a definition and all these sorts of things. Look at docs. It's that one-stop shop for finding all the things you need relative to an internal development team. And so by having Backstage integrated, into your development processes, I think is going to be important. And the nice thing about the extension model is these tabs at the top are extensible. So you can take a look at new capabilities relative to that. So let me see if there's one here. Yeah. So if you take this example, Shuffle API, you can see here there's CI/CD as part of this. Now they haven't installed anything in terms of plugins here, but if you download and install the plugin for Octopus, you'll see your spaces and your projects show up in that tab. And so you can actually see a view of your deployments relative to that tab. So I think Backstage and platforms like this are going to be increasingly important as we go forward. And so if you want to read more about this, I think anything that Humantech is writing around this is really vital. These guys are definitely ahead of the curve when it comes to platform engineering and IDPs, etc. So check out their blog and this article if you're at all interested finding out more. And then, of course, there's also the internal developer platform site at internaldeveloperplatform.org.
All right.
Cool.
Slick stuff.
Yes. Moving on with other stuff. New in Visual Studio, compare files in Solution Explorer. So Solution Explorer is that nice, beautiful flyout that you see inside of Visual. So you won't know about anything Rider user. You won't know anything about this, but you guys have a similar view. But the nice thing here is you can do file comparisons directly in line within VS. So you can right click on these two files, for example, say compare selected, and it'll give you a diff. So yeah, nothing major, but nice. You also get a context menu. So if you select a single file, you can look at old versions. I love how they do the reference here to a folder called old. That was my
Never done that
source
before in my
control.
life. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Anything old one, old two. That was my version of source control back in the day. So yeah, those and other capabilities you can now do in the new Solution Explorer. And I believe this is part of 17.7, if I'm not mistaken, but it is in VS, so you can check that out as well. I have not had a chance to play around with Kubernetes 128, but it has shipped, so bunch of stuff there. They detail it in all these sub-blog posts as well, so you can read about it. I'm not going to bore you by reading the blog post itself, but there are some massive changes to this. And so, Yeah, just to put it on folks' radar. The code name they've given it
Planternites.
for is Planternetes. Planternetes. That's right.
That is a
So the theme
terrible,
here is,
terrible, terrible name.
well, they're all like that, right? So they're all variations of the Kubernetes name. So there you go. So yeah, 45 enhancements, 19 entering alpha, 14 have graduated to beta, and 12 have graduated to stable. So Planternetes. There you go. There's the logo. And if you want to find out more, you can read them sub-articles here. This was a blog post put out by Terraform a few days ago. Terraform ephemeral workspaces public beta now available. So this is really nice because oftentimes when working with infrastructure, you want things just to go away. And sometimes Terraform destroy doesn't destroy everything. Sometimes you get bugs in the provider that you're using or things go wrong, etc. And so this is for Terraform Cloud, and it's basically an environment where you can basically have it's sort of like the using keyword, and that's now in TypeScript. So you can now basically say, put a time bomb on this that will destroy any non-production resources, so you don't have to worry about cleanup. And this is nice because just like any other ephemeral workspace or anything like that, the nature of it being ephemeral, meaning it can just float away like dandelion spores and you won't have to worry about it later. So the way you enable this is you basically set this up in your settings. So if I take a look here, no one ever includes a nice big image, but there you go. So under the tab here, destruction and deletion, you can automatically set up basically a timer. And this is like the timer of a detonation. Go ahead and auto cleanup or auto destroy on such and such a date and time. So ephemeral workspaces now available as part of cloud, which is great. So yeah, awesome. And we showed you that feature earlier. So there you go. So as I play with the buttons, so that wraps up the news of the week. And Jim, I'm eagerly awaiting all the stuff that you keep promising to show us one day. But yeah, when will you start talking about all the awesomeness that you guys have shared internally?
I'm not
Is there a
sure.
time frame that roughly sometime
I
in our
mean,
lifetime?
I think you'll start hearing some stuff towards the end of this year about some of the scaling efforts we're doing, but there's
All right.
quite a long program of work happening around it as well. So yeah.
Yeah, so Jim was gracious enough to share with us some of the plans that they're working on, and it sounds awesome. It sounds difficult as well, some of the stuff that they're working on, but the end result for users or customers will be a good thing. So that's all I can say without getting in trouble. So, anyways, thanks a lot, Jim, for joining us on this episode. Really appreciate it, and we're here every Friday, so you can check us out on the various sub channels and social media channels that we have available. And if you spot a news story that you would like us to talk about, feel free to hit us up, and we'd be happy to cover it on the next edition of Deploy on Friday. So on behalf of Jim and myself and all of us here at Octopus Deploy, thanks a lot. Have a great week, and we'll see you here next time. Take care.